to throw a cult in your TTRPG sessions but realised that the outcome was kinda lame? Well, today I'm going to help you make cults that will shock and intrigue your players. Hello everyone, and welcome to Dungeon Bits. I am Lord Bits, but you can just call me Daddy, and recently I've come into the idea that these videos should be more specific, and sleeves, and they should be more to inspire you, rather than you just feeling like you're here attending a lecture. So, cults. Let's start off with what we mean by cults. Actually, let's not do that, because unsurprisingly, that opens up a big can of worms. Instead, let's define what most people think of when they think of cults in their fictions or TTRPGs. We think of cults as being devoted to something or someone and taking extreme actions in the name of that thing. That thing. I mean, there's a stat block for cultists in D&D, but they're basically just, guys with knives, so you can flavour them. And that is the problem. That is the problem to solve with this video. Most people's cultures end up being boring, so let's change that. But first of all, come on, we're all friends here. Let's a bit more casual. Step 1. What does this cult worship? This is the basis of every cult and warlock. Both let you choose whatever they worship, so go wild and unique. In the Hyperion books, the cult of the Shrike worship the Shrike, a widely known being of pain. The Shrike is well known because the stories are sci-fi and not really a horror. But to make your cult scary, make sure that you know what they worship. But don't be afraid to leave your players guessing what exactly the being is. The mystery of what the Eyeless Seer is enthralling. Like right there, I know what the Eyeless Seer is, and it's really creepy and cool, but I'm not going to tell you. Step 2. What does this cult do? Based on what they worship, what dark things will they do? Who or what told them to? Don't give them a vague goal because they're the bad guys. Them having plans lends this creepy idea that these people have to premeditate on the idea of doing these horrific things. They even meet up somewhere and have a leader. So, Mr. Manson, step 3. Who is their leader? Who is it? Did they start the cult? Do they claim to be the only one who can speak to their god? And are they telling the truth? The leader is the cult's desires embodied in one person for the players to hate, and they could use this knowledge to bring the whole cult down as they remove their charismatic leader. Step 4. What threat do they pose? There are barks outside from doggies.
I will sacrifice them.
The interesting and scary thing about cults is that the members are just people. If there's a cult presence in town, there's no telling how far their reach can go. You could have the PCs meet a bunch of friendly NPCs who are all in the cult. I know people who are genuinely scared of cults in general for this reason. The paranoia that takes over, with you unable to know who you can trust, is horrifying. And if that's not bad enough, they try to summon demons and shiz. Step 5. Lay out some culture. Besides the genius wordplay, by this I mean don't be afraid to include little details about them. Put flavour into what the cult wears, what they do, how they act, and what specific things they do in the rituals. All based around what they worship, and if your players are fine with it, don't be afraid to go dark with these details. And now, after that advice, here are 5 cults that you can use and reflavour in your games tonight, right now, whenever. To start, a slight twist on the cult expectations. The players are invited to the Ramsey estate, home to the generous and affluent noble Ramsey family. They are picked up in a fancy carriage that is actually a teleportation chamber that immediately brings the PCs into a dark, sprawling dungeon. This winding dungeon extends for a long time, and the players find journals from nobles telling stories of how they hear things in the dark, being locked in the basement, and how they found empty coffins with names from people that they thought were buried elsewhere. And down in this dungeon with them is a bat-like, rat-like, human-like abomination that hunts the players. The Ramsey family are vampires, and the creature in the dungeon is their great-great-grandfather. This cult is composed of the Ramsey family and those that wanted to join in with what they're doing, affluent people who you'd never think otherwise. And for those that don't want to join them, could you go downstairs and feed Grandpa? Worshipping the brutality and the power of their ancient vampire grandfather, this cult's ritual involves people in it to be hunted like prey, rather than people standing around in robes, summoning demons and stabbing into hearts and that kind of thing. But here's the thing, if you're anything like me, you love dungeons, but think they're just horrific to run, so this last idea might sound really cool but ultimately too much hassle to implement. Well, dungeons in any game, and in fact running anything in any TTRPG, could be simple and fun with a group that I want to tell you about. Tabletop. Tabletop is currently in its alpha and testing phases, and it's a virtual tabletop, a VTT, that I can see becoming the new and best way to play across the internet. And let me tell you, I'm not just spewing honeyed words at you. I've used other VTTs in the past, and they were super complex. Like, I'd be making my players wait for 5 minutes just to show them the next layer of the dungeon. Awful. Every single problem, from the small things to the big things, that your game of choice presents in your VTT of choice, Tabletop is helping you run that game, super smooth. Because I'm a special boy like that, they show me behind the scenes features, and may I just say, excuse the French, but I was downright flabbergasted. I genuinely feel like I'm looking at the groundwork of something special. With Tabletop, you can switch between levels of a dungeon with a single click of the mouse. The platform will even transcribe what you're saying live, so there's a log of the actions taken. No joke, the platform will make notes for you. GMs rejoice. No longer will we suffer Terrence not taking notes, you plebeian. Oh yeah, and did I mention that when it does that little awesome feature, it can tell whether you're just bantering and talking about pencils and when you're actually playing. I'm practically gushing because it's hot in here, but also being shown what this platform is going to become, I am convinced that these guys are actually magic. And I didn't even describe all the features. I didn't even touch just the tip of the iceberg. It's not even done yet. And despite having so much to lose your mind over, it's still extremely simple to use. I have links to Tabletop in the description. Click them and follow these guys on Kickstarter and their socials so you can help bring about the best virtual tabletop experience that we should all be having. Seriously, go do it. Now, after being blown away by the awesomeness of Tabletop, back to these tips, I want to give you guys a bit of a disclaimer. If you are sensitive to darker subjects, maybe take the advice that I've said already and skip on to the next chapter in the video's timeline. In the glorious city of the elves, they have reports of children going missing. Good start. It turns out a cult known as the Caretakers of the White Sphere live here, and in fact, a bunch of the townsfolk are a part of this cult. They worship an unhatched green dragon's egg, and their leader is the ex-priest of life, known as the Painter, who has been granted the powers of a dragon soul sorcerer due to the latent magic surrounding the egg. Out of fear of an unmentioned mother dragon's wrath, and seeking a reward from the Horde of course, they want to bring life to the egg because you see, the egg has been left for too long, and the baby inside the dragon's egg is likely already dead. And they will do this via a ritual that lets the egg gain the years of another being being sacrificed to it. And if the total years the dragon would live are sacrificed to it, it will hatch. But, you know, dragons live a long time. And what creature nearby has the most years to live in an elven city? As extra details, while performing rituals, the cultists wear green, but never wear green otherwise. And the ritual itself involves taking blood drained from a wound and painting it on the egg, displaying a green dragon, and the ritual is complete when the egg turns white again. Creepy, horrific, sacrifices, white eggs, painting. Hope that was unique enough. Let's move on. Then we have the Red Laments. After losing a war, some of the broken soldiers who sacrificed much and lost even more found camaraderie under one dark cause. They worship an unseen god known as the Herald of the Dead Horizon, who is actually a demon, and their leader is known as the Herald's Voice, who is an ex-soldier too, who claims he can speak to the Herald. They see themselves as the necessary evil, and after participating in that war, they believe that the souls of humanoids are now forfeit, and only by shouldering all of the evils of the world can they spare the world. Acting more like barbarians than dark warlocks, these guys ravage the countryside at the start of every work week and cause as much blood and destruction as they can. And just to be creepy, as they mow down innocents, they loudly sob over their own damned souls. Then, the Children of Rapture is actually a simple story. Led by a dropout from a wizard school who uses magic to pretend the power comes from a creature known as the Lurker, the cult is told that they will be given healing, power and good fortune in return for doing what the wizard says, which is the will of this god, supposedly. But of course, there is no Lurker, but the wizard uses these servants to harass people that it doesn't like, old successful colleagues and being his wives. The cult are told to wear their most beautiful clothing for gatherings, maybe even their most revealing clothing, and the Lurker is pleased as a result. The ritual involves them just sitting and listening to the wizard's poetry and songs that he's made. Bit of a sado. No dark god, just one pathetic manipulator. And finally, sightings tell of a terrifying creature in the dunes of the coastal town at night. The drones are a small cult who live amongst the populace, and they worship the very creature that has been sighted, the Crawling Queen. Led by a fisherman who first came upon the creature, the cult does not kill, but instead act as a mafia of sorts as they extort money from the already poor coastal town. But why? Because the Crawling Queen does not demand blood, but instead gold and worship. But if she doesn't get the gold she wants. And for details, the gold-giving ritual involves the cult dressing naked to appear poor and vulnerable in front of the queen, and the cult members must always spit on the ground when in the presence of lesser nobility. Because the cultists have already given all of their money, they must rob the poor town so the queen does not kill. How did this even start? Well, the queen offered the fisherman immortality in return for a constant flow of gold, but when the cult couldn't keep up, this gift became a curse, as the cult became immortal servitors who were forced to rob the town to stop the queen from spilling innocent blood. And that sighting that was reported, it was the queen after the coffers had run dry. And for more inspiration to finish us all off here are some recommendations: Incantation, The Ritual, VHS and The Void. Fictional cults can be creepy examples of how dark humans can be with the wrong direction of devotion, or a little bit of manipulation, and I hope now these woeful warlocks can be even cooler in your games. Thank you for watching, my children. Leave a like so YouTube will treat this video nicely, and if you guys want a cool cultist busting class, you can click the link in the description to grab one of mine. They are super fun. Click the video on screen so you can turn your sessions into terrifying experiences for your players, and make sure that you check out Tabletop. See you next Saturday where I talk more spooks.